Hello, Tuesday. Over in the United States of America, we've got a thing that looks like a Joker chart. But this is for total consumer credit from the onset of the recession. So it was set at the onset of the recession at 100, and we can observe what happened in the old days, the old recession since the Second World War. And we can see that the recession doesn't last long because generally the American consumer people take on credit more and more. We can see down bottom left there 100 in the blue recession, which was 2001. You were straight back at it. So the recession was never going to last long. In fact, it did, but it was shallow because you just took on credit again. The red one was 1980. That was a deep one, but the 81, 82's there. Anyway, the orange one is today, and it's gone below zero for most all of this time, but he's just getting back to the 0 line or the 100 line, and next month or the month after, all things being very well, the United States consumer will be consuming on credit again, and that's the way they like it. Interesting chart. This is persons, United States, receiving federal disability benefits. Going back to 1967, we can see there's a great hump up there in 1977. Now, I've got no idea why this might be. Perhaps you know and would like to comment. And then it dropped back in the 80s, and since the 90s, it has been going up and up. Now, this is percentage of the population, working population type people, aged between 25 and 64, and that's an awful lot of people when you're talking 3, 4, 5% of the working population now receiving federal disability benefits. So perhaps again you can comment and tell me why. Are more people skiing and getting injured, or more repetitive strain injury from typing too much on computers? What might it be driving that up? Because that is an awful lot of people who are not unemployed, by the way. I don't think. They are in a different category. They are persons receiving federal disability benefits, a different category. But they ain't working. This is from the Washington Post, and they're trying to put together what Romney and Obama would mean for the taking out of taxes from pay packets, from wages, from salaries. And it reads, President Obama's tax plan would raise revenues mostly from higher income families. Obama's in light pretty blue. Mitt Romney's plan would increase tax rates paid by lower and middle income families. You don't have class in America, do you? Middle income families. In pretty pink is Romney. As we can see, we'll start at the bottom with Romney, down at the 0 to 20% of household amount of money earned by the household. Or is it personal? It doesn't matter. It's the bottom 20% of earners are down at the bottom. And as you can see, Obama wouldn't have them paying much. Pretty blue is less than pretty pink, but it's very small numbers. Again, slightly more for the major wodge of the population, I would think. I don't know if these are averages or medians, or I get confused with all that. But we can see as we go up the income scale, they kind of are the same for the 40, 60, 60, 80, 80, 90, 90, 95, and even 95, 99. And Obama just wants to tap, as in hit, the 1%, top 1%, and push their tax rates up to 36, as opposed to Romney, who would have them down at 25. But of course there are very few people up in the top 1%, so Romney would be taking less money but from more people. Something like that? Something like that. And it might actually come to things like this, because it's looking as though Obama is going to stay in the race. He's going to fight, and it looks like Romney would be the person he would be up against, wouldn't he? It's looking that way from the little I take notice of it. And so something like this might come to pass, but it must be noted that, from what I can gather, the actual tax income take after these two plans, either of the two plans, are put into motion, wouldn't make much of. They're not taking much tax out compared to the average across the years, the decades. That's still a very, very low tax income take going into Washington. Very low. So it'd be, if they ever thought of getting towards balancing the books, an awful lot would have to come from reductions in expenditure if that was their line, because they're not going to take it in income tax. Going out into the real world, news from India. India loses apparently $500 billion to tax havens. And that's an awful lot of money for India. That's $500 billion. That's, India's a big place, but that's a lot of money. And the funds were being sent to tax havens such as Mauritius, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and the BVIs, among others. And under the picture it says India's underground economy accounts for 50% of GDP. That is a monstrous great amount of underground economy. Half the economy is underground. You'd think they'd really have to get on top of that if they're ever going to be anything. So the chances are India never really is going to amount to much. China says January lending is down 28% from a year ago. We don't need to read it. It only gets us confused with yuan's amounts and whatever. And the real important thing is that if January's lending is down 28% from a year ago, that's interesting information. But obviously it's because of their new year, and it might not be as bad as it seems. But there do seem to be rumblings coming from China. Over in the Euroland, this is a JP Morgan chart charting the core financial conditions. In other words, how the money things are going in the core of the euro, which is blue, and the black one is for the periphery. As you can see, they've tracked each other generally, but now the periphery is dropping an awful lot lower, and it's hard to know exactly what JP Morgan's talking about in this chart. But basically we can think that, unfortunately, it's a fact of life that economies now need what are called good financial conditions. And without good financial conditions, the economy suffers. So we can imagine that the periphery of the Eurozone is suffering due to bad financial conditions. And as it says at the bottom, fix this or stagnation and default. It might not be quite as much as that, but who's going to fix it? From this morning's Financial Times, we get the move. We get something that I haven't taken a picture of, so I can't tell you. So I'll go straight to my... there it was. Moody's shifts outlook for UK and France. Moody's put the UK, France and Austria on negative outlook late on Monday night, raising the prospect that the three countries would lose their AAA ratings due to exposure to the Eurozone debt crisis. It is the first time that the heavily indebted UK has been placed on negative credit outlook by a big rating agency since the Eurozone crisis erupted. And I'll go back to my pictures for this. Must remember to take the picture so I can show it to you. 7b is the move by Moody's comes after Standard & Poor's downgraded France and Austria 1 notch to AA last month. Moody's 2-notch downgrade of Spain at the same time places its rating 1 notch below that of S&P. Mr. LeMay of Moody's said the tough economic outlook facing the Eurozone was particularly acute for Spain, with an unemployment rate above 20% and a banking system that is still very much challenged. And a great swathe of Spanish banks were downgraded yesterday as well. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. And they're going to be short of fat ladies soon in the Eurozone to do the singing. Right, I'll tidy that up and present it to you later. Bye.